Hi, I'm Jerry Bailey with Dynamic Literacy, authors of WordBuild, A Better Way to Teach Vocabulary. Elements is 3 years worth of material based on Latin and Greek roots. Students will have the ability to access tens of thousands of words once they've completed the 3 levels of Elements. Everything I tell you from this point forward can be found in our excellent teacher editions, so be sure you use those. Elements starts out with a review of prefixes and suffixes. We're not assuming that students have done the Foundations program. If they have, this will be a real breeze for them, but if they haven't, even if they're starting this in 10th or 11th grade, it's very important not to skip this part. You really need to do this review because kids just don't know this. They haven't studied it in an organized way unless they've done our Foundations program. So you take your time and do that review. There are activities if students need them. That's all presented to you in the teacher book. Then once they're finished with that review of all the prefixes and suffixes that are going to be used with the first root that we study, we're ready to start studying that first root. And that root, which is in the student activity book, is form. Form means shape, appearance, or arrangement. This activity is really the key to our statement that we never give students lists of words to memorize. Students are going to build their own lists, and one of the neat things about WordBuild is that every person who looks at this will probably build a slightly different list. We don't care how many words students build from this. What we want them to do is try every piece. So form is in the center, and the only rule is that I have to use it when I combine it with any of these other prefixes and suffixes that surround it. So looking at this, I might build forming, formed, reform, forms, conformed, formation. And that's one that's a little tricky, and that's really the key piece for this particular exercise for form. The suffix ion can't be used by itself. It has to be combined with another piece. AT to build formation or reformation or a number of other words you could build. That's your job as a teacher, is to simply see if they've tried to use all the pieces and coach them through that. We have really good guidance for how to do that in the teacher book, so please do that. They'll probably only spend 5 minutes on this. This is a great activity if you have more than one student using it because they're going to come up with slightly different lists. And when you get together and share, everybody's list is going to get longer. So that was day 1. On day 2, we have an activity called a magic square. A magic square is a matching activity whereby students will look at the words in this column and look for the right definition and then write the number of the answer in here. So in the teacher book, we'll walk through the process, and the first few times you do this, you'll do it with your students. How do we find the answer? So the first word is deform. So you'll say, let's see, we need to divide deform into its units of meaning. That's called morphemic splitting, a wonderful skill to have. So if you divide that word, you take the root form off, you're left with the prefix D, DE, which they would have just reviewed. And there's also a prefix reference in the front of the student book, and very cleverly placed in the back, a suffix reference. So they may need to remind themselves, but DE means take away. So if I look through the definitions for this, I'm going to find that number 7 says to take away the nature or shape of. Well, that has those keywords take away. And if you think about it, that's really what deform means, to take away the shape of something, right? You're going to make a different shape out of it. So you have them write number 7 in box A, and then tell them, use the same thought process to answer the rest of these. If they get them all right, every row and every column will add up to the same number. That's the magic number. On day 3, there's another activity. I think this is the hardest one in here. It's called a stair step. And it's called that just because visually it looks like a puzzle that is stepped like stairs. What they're going to have to do here is take yet again a different approach. They need to read a definition, look at the box up here, and figure out what pieces do I need to add to this root to get to the word that's being described. Now a shorter word is pretty easy. So to give another form to, shape again, again is the key word. So I need to put the prefix re in here, R-E. So the word is reform. But some of the longer words can be a little more difficult. And students will get better at this over time. But at the end of 15 minutes, maybe they didn't get number 6. You say stop. Okay, I see you didn't get number 6. Let's look at the definition here. I have the answer. So in the teacher book, you look at it and you say, oh, the answer is information. Now let's read the definition and see why it makes sense. And the definition will always make sense. So it's not about beating them over the head with this for 2 hours, because they might look at it for 2 hours and never figure that one out. They'll never want to do this again if you allow that to happen. So spend 15 minutes or less on it. Anything they need help with, help them with, and then move on. They'll get better and better at this. On day 4, there's another activity, but you have some options. Okay? This is called a comprehension booster, and it's a fill in the blanks activity. There's a word bank at the bottom. So now they're going to have to use these words they've been exposed to in context, and the sentence should help them figure out what word goes in there. This is fun if you're using it with more than one student, because quite often more than one word might be an okay answer. If they do all 10 of these, they're going to find a best fit, so there'll have to be a little negotiation that happens there. But it's fun to actually referee an argument when both sides are right. And that's one of the things about language that makes it interesting, is it's not an exact science. At least English is not. Another option that you have on day 4 is to send the kids to newspapers, periodicals, maybe the internet, or their textbooks to look for words that use that root. That's an interesting activity, harder for some roots than for others, and it's something that eventually they'll just start doing on their own as they're studying these things and they start thinking about words in a different way. There's also another option, which is a computer game called WordBuild the Game, and we'll describe that to you in another video, but it's something that you can use in conjunction with elements. It has all of the roots that are in all 3 levels of elements, and background music. It's a lot of fun, has audio feedback, and kids really like that. It's kind of hard to make them stop at 15 minutes. If they're doing that on their own time, let them go, let them have fun with it. Now, if you remember, the objective of the entire series of WordBuild is to give kids the tools they need, so when they're reading and they come across a word they haven't seen before, it just becomes a puzzle to them to solve, right? Well, we start to measure that right away. There's a test every week. So this is the test for the root form. There are only 10 questions on here. If your kids have been conscious during the week, I know that's a question sometimes, but if they've been conscious during the week, they'll get the first 8 of these with no problem. The last 2 questions, however, are words that we know they have not seen before. They have not come up during the week, and quite often they're words they've never seen before. For example, question number 9, if the root dendri means tree, what is something described as dendriform? A, it has the shape of a tree. B, it lives in a tree. C, it eats trees. Well, if they've been studying form all week and they know that form means shape, this is really easy. If they don't know that form means shape, they're just guessing, right? So obviously it has the shape of a tree because you're putting those 2 roots together, tree and shape. So it becomes very easy. There's also a midterm assessment in here after the first 12 roots, and there's a comprehensive test that covers all 25 that are in the first year. You can give that before you start as a pre-test, put it in the drawer. At the end of the year, give it again, and when you pull out that original test, everybody will go, wow, look how much I've learned. Have fun with WordBuild. Remember the 15 minutes a day, and your students will really like it. They'll have access to tens of thousands of words.